What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Grind Time. This is Fantasy Football Grinder. Today, guys, I wanted to do a video that's going to be, for some of us, it's probably going to be really repetitive, but for some people, it's going to be something new. I think everybody needs to understand and know how to do this. I mean, it's just teach people how to play fantasy football. Why not have people informed? We need to start, helping people understand because this is becoming a really, fantasy football is becoming a really big deal for a lot of people. And I'm going to also today talk about a new form of league that I just started doing some research and understanding this league. This is going to be something I'm really interested in trying. And maybe I get a few friends together just to try it out for one season, see if it's any fun. I don't really want to go I don't really want to put a big, pot on the line. I don't know how this will play out. This is not one thing that I want to go put a bunch of, guys with, $50 buy ins on and do all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't want to do all that with this, but I do want to tell you guys about it, see what you guys think about it, and I think it's a pretty cool idea. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about some of the basics of fantasy football, teach some people how to play. I think this is, something that a lot of people they've lost track of, or some of us that have been playing for years don't even really understand what we're talking about when it comes to different styles of leagues. And I know I personally just figured out a few years back about keeper leagues and how they work. I knew about Dynasty, but keeper was never a big deal then. And I know that there's a few things like the Sleeper app and a few of those places, they do have some different styles that they were bringing on last season. And I didn't jump in then, but I think this year that's what I might do. I might take some focus away from getting into big cash money leagues. I may just get into some leagues for fun this year. Since I'm just teaching people and I'm really helping other people, maybe this year I'll just do some fun leagues. I don't know, but we'll see. First off though, I really want people to understand how to play fantasy football. I think that it would be, you open up your community to a whole new world when everybody understands the game. So first off, guys, the most important thing to me for anybody that needs to understand how to play is the scoring system. Most people don't understand the scoring system. It's not hard to understand, but it's easier shown on paper than it is sometimes shown than told and explained. I'm gonna do my best to explain it. I want this year would be a good year that I'd like for people that maybe they follow people like my buddy West Coast. Maybe they follow, his page, but they've never played fantasy. They don't understand anything about it. You know, I didn't understand a lot about it. I was never, to be honest with you, when I grew up, I was a basketball player first. All I did was play basketball 24/7. I put together basketball teams, played basketball in high school. That's all I did. Now, when I turned 14, 15 years old, I started figuring out what fantasy football was. I didn't watch the NFL growing up. My family did. My family loved it. They were all into to the NFL. I was never a football fan. I thought football was stupid when I was younger. And that's just being honest, but I did. And when I picked up fantasy football, it opened up a whole new window for me. This was a new outlet for me. This is something that I found out, hey, I'm pretty good at this. This is something like I understand math and I understand logic, I understand numbers and predicting ahead of time. Those are things that I'm able to pretty well do. I'm able to look at other, coaching styles and see what coaches, like to do this and what players like to play this way. And I'm able to pull up, different things about players. That's why, I will give you guys opinions on some guys that you may say, oh, ain't no way. And then this year, they will, you're going to see a lot of those guys go off. And it's not boasting and bragging. It's just research, research, research. And guys, I do believe that if we all stay focused, if you stay focused and you take one path, you're gonna be mountains ahead of all the people in your league. You want to beat your leagues. You want to. I don't personally. I don't feel good and fuzzy about beating a league and just escaping by the skin of my teeth. I want to be able to go into a league and just completely crash course dominate everything. That's what I want to do. Does that happen? Not every year. There's years I get stomped and I'm barely making it to the playoffs. When I get to the playoffs, I'm able to compete. But there's some years you can't control. You can't control injuries sometimes. You can never predict an injury. I can never tell you he's going to get hurt. I can tell you I feel like he's going to get hurt because of based off the past history of maybe knees, legs, hamstrings. That's this year. Hamstrings is a big deal. So, guys, let's start off. Let's give everybody, a kind of a crash course on fantasy football and, see if we can develop some new fans. Who knows, guys? The bigger it gets, the better it gets. And I do think that I know there's a lot of states that are having, some form of legal battle with fantasy and DFS, things like that. We'll discuss DFS in a minute. I think a lot of this boils down to people not understanding. It's not that these people, it's not that everybody's against us playing fantasy football. It's that majority of people don't understand what it is. So we need to start breaking people off with a little knowledge. Teach people, don't get into a battle with somebody if they're gonna fight with you and argue with you that they know they're right and you're wrong. Just walk away from that situation. A lot of times that's better off. But let's break this down. I'd love for people that are NFL fans or just the kid in school that just doesn't know what he's doing. He's just bored. He wants something to do. That's who I suggest you pick up fantasy football. And it's so much fun. It's an interesting deal for everybody. It's something that you can do with your friends, your family, and you don't have to put up big pots of money. I mean, you can put up, hey, last place has got to go do something crazy. I mean, you can do a lot with fantasy football that you used to not be able to do. Back when I first started playing fantasy football, we were having to write stats down on paper. So it's advanced way up from we're writing stats on paper to we're able to do all this crazy stuff. People like me and other people were looped in and were able to come in and give advice. I mean, it used to not matter. You just picked what you thought was best and you went with it. Now it's advanced. And if you want to win, outside of a lucky auto draft team, then you're going to have to take some advice from people and you're going to have to follow a strategy and a guide. And that's where I want to start here. I want to start, before we start breaking down next week, we're going to start breaking down, getting into, different players and this, that, and the other. But before we do that, we need to understand why we're breaking these players down like we are. And we also need to understand how do we play fantasy football? How do we win in fantasy football? And we gotta know the parameters before we can understand what we can do inside of them. And that's where I'm gonna teach today. I'm gonna teach you guys some things. I'm gonna bring up something cool too I've learned, a new kind of league, and we're gonna go from there and discuss it, guys. So first off, the most simple thing in the world, but it can be the most complicating for some people, is the scoring system. When you're talking fantasy football and we're talking scoring system, guys, it's very simple. It can get confusing when we start throwing in these other scoring systems I'm going to bring up. The most common is your standard points scoring system. When somebody says it's a standard league, what they mean by that is you don't get points for receptions. What it is okay, let's say your league is set up for running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. For every yard they get 0.1 points. So every 10 yards is a point, okay? So, and then you'll have bonuses. So if I have Zeke and he rushes for 100 yards, then I'm going to get a 5-point bonus. So that every 10 yards is a point. So I get 10 points just from his yardage. Then I get another 5 points because he broke 100 yards. That's my 5-point bonus. So I get 15 points. If he scores a touchdown, I'm going to get 6. So I'm going to have 21 points off of Zeke right there. Off the bat, 21 points. That's what people need to understand when I say grab as many running backs as you can. We know running backs in the right system are going to go, they're going to get, they're going to have 100-yard games. We want that. We want the big games. We want the 100-yard games. That's what we need. And so you will get that from running backs. But with wide receivers, even the top tier, upper echelon of wide receivers, they're going to still have games where they don't get enough targets. They're running down clock, and the team just has no need in throwing them the ball deep every time. So when it comes to receivers, I tend to steer away a little bit until not later rounds, but, the mid rounds. That's where I want to go for receivers because I want my running backs, because when we're talking scoring system, they're going to get you 15 to 20 points. Just right there off the bat, that's what you're going to get. Now, there's two other phases of scoring that people use, and one could be multiplied. That's going to be your PPR, half PPR. PPR stands for points per reception. This is very simple, very common, but it throws you off. Somebody says, I'm in a standard league or I'm in a PPR league, and you're like, what is that? What does that even mean? There's a lot of people that don't understand what that means. So, that's going to be points per reception. You may be in a league that says, we give two points per reception. We give a half a point. Typically it's going to be PPR, half PPR. And that just means that's what you get every time somebody catches the ball. There's also leagues that give you points for carries. It's very rare. Most people don't use that, but it's you might get a half a point every time your running back gets the ball handed off to him. So that's a very rare thing. It's too much run around. Really, most people don't use that because it's kind of senseless. I mean, it helps. I guess it would help the running back position to an extent, but then it would just overvalue the running back position so much, so drastically that nobody would ever get a wide receiver. It just flood the market with running backs. So that's your typical scoring system. Very simple, very common. I mean, it's not hard to understand. The only thing I think that gets people is when you get to like defense and special team scoring, and those are going to be factored in by your league. Whoever your league commissioner is, that's who's going to factor that in. So when you go to play, like if you're going to play, some leagues are going to value DST, defense special teams. They're going to value that higher than other leagues. I've played in leagues where your defense special teams can make 50 points. I mean, that's the settings because the way they have it set up. And so if that is the case, then maybe you go a couple of rounds higher for a defense. But to be honest, defense is so volatile. I stay away from grabbing early defenses. I don't have a purpose in that. We can get defense all day long. And you're 9 times out of 10, your top 10 is going to flip around on defenses. Everybody kind of knows who they are, but nobody really knows who's going to be that guy, who's going to be the best. And like last year, you had the Steelers. The Steelers come out of nowhere, and I picked them up on waivers. And I'd really just picked them up just to be a fill-in for the week. And they took off. So that's neither here nor there right now. But I do want people to understand, like when it comes to defensive scoring, that's what you're gonna have to know is what value is your points for your defense. And kickers are gonna be their points are broke down. Anything inside of the 30-yard line is gonna be 3 points. Anything 40 yards or to 40 to 49 yards is going to be 4 points. Anything over 50 yards is going to be 5 points. So that's how the kickers go. And so if you get a kicker, focus on drafting kickers on teams that are not great finishers. You want a team that's not going to finish great. They may have a really good wide receiver core and a terrible running back core, and that's what you see. The guy, I think his name's Matt Gay. He's from Tampa Bay. He's there with Brady, but you don't really necessarily see them over there in Tampa Bay as the type to go on fourth down a lot. So you're probably going to see a lot of just, hey, we'll just kick a field goal and take our points. So that's a good guy to target. He's a last round guy. You can get him pretty late. So he's a good guy to target. He's going to be on an offense gonna kick the ball a good bit. So that's just a little pointer to throw in while I'm telling you about the points. And so that's pretty much your scoring system. That's how it breaks down for your players. Quarterbacks are about the same thing too. Quarterbacks get a point for every 25 passing yards, and then they'll get bonuses for every 300 passing yards. So your 5-point bonus will come after 300 yards with a quarterback, and that's typically how that goes. You have to check every time you're in a league. You got to go check your point system, and a lot of times before the draft, it's smart to go ahead and look at that, and then maybe you make some changes on your style or how much you value a wide receiver or how much you value a running back. Your value of players may change depending on roster settings or anything like that. So let's move on to the next thing. This is the biggest. This is going to be a big topic, and this is probably the biggest topic. Is going to be your draft. Your two topics going to be your draft and your league type. So, but the draft styles are typically you got two draft styles, and this is going to be your main two that people are going to focus on. Okay. So first off is snake, and this is your average draft. This is 1 through 12, 12 through 1. So if I'm the last pick in the first round, I'm going to be the first pick in the second round. It's going to go vice versa, all the way down to round 16, 17, whatever your last round is. Very common sense, very simple. You got to watch that. Keep an eye on guys in between you. That way you don't get burnt getting players. But that's pretty much the only tip with that. It's not a whole lot to discuss on that end. Just to understand, if you say standard snake draft, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a league that doesn't do PPR scoring, and you're going to get a league that drafts from 1 through 12 to 12 through 1. And then you have the other type of draft is going to be your auction draft. Now with auction drafts, this is one that I've kind of grown. It grew on me, and I've grown to really like auction drafts. Auction drafts are very entertaining. It's very fun to do an auction draft. The leagues, I've had a blast. I've had a blast. I've figured out ways to build savage teams. What you do with auction draft is you'll have say you have $100 budget for players. Now, just like an auction house, just like if you're at a car auction, you're going to have your money in your pot to spend. But what happens is you can get any player you want until you run out of money. Now, you can't just spend all your money on two players and then, that's it, not get any more players and grab some. You can't do that. You can't just get players on the waiver wire. Once you hit a certain amount, say you're supposed to have 15 players. If you spend all your money on two, you're going to have $13, okay? And that's going to cover your other players. You're going to have $1 to spend per player. Now, this is where people get burnt big time on auction draft. Don't get yourself in that bind. Always make sure that when you hit $26, you need to stop all action and don't do anything else. $2 per player. You want to make sure if I got 10 roster spots left, I have $20. And don't go any lower. You can use $1 on another player, it gives you 3, whatever. But here's the strategy with that I use, and this is my favorite way of doing it. So, we're in an auction draft. We're kicking off right now, okay? I'm going to see say the first few people come. What they'll do is they'll start off, and the first person in line is going to pick a player. They're going to nominate a player, and they're going to start off with a dollar bid on that player. Everybody will have their chance. Everybody starts bidding. The timer will start running, and a lot of times you'll get. Most auction drafts aren't going to just stop on you. Some might, depending on the settings. But what happens is once everybody else is tapped out on money, then whoever wins that bid, that's who wins that player. So here's the strategy that I use, guys. When it comes to me, I like to nominate players that I don't want. Or maybe not don't want, but it comes to me and it's the first round, I may throw A.J. Brown up there. I love A.J. Brown. He's a freaking awesome wide receiver, and I love him on my team. But what it is, that's a mid-tier guy, and I may be able to get somebody to bite and spend, say, 15 to 20% of their cap on that one guy. So what happens is if I do that a couple times and I just keep getting in that rhythm of running guys up on mid-tier guys, then I've got upper-tier guys here, and I'm able to get them for, if their average price is $30, I'm able to go get them for 20, and I may be able to 4 or 5 studs. I mean, I may be able to. Don't overspend on quarterback. Don't overspend on tight end, and you'll be okay. But that is a trick that I use. I will do it just like that, and then I will make sure I have my own system broke down, okay? When you go into that draft, make sure you have your own system broke down. Now, say I decide, okay, I'm going to spend 25% on 3 guys. So I'm going to spend 75% altogether. 25% on this one, 25 on this one, 25 on this one, and the rest of my money is going to go to the last round guys. So I get up there and then I win the bid for 20, then that 5%, instead of going to one of my higher end players, I'm putting that back. Because what happens is when you get to the last rounds and everybody else is down to $1 per player to spend, you're going to have $2. So if somebody throws up, say you wanted Cam Akers. You want Cam Akers. Cam Akers makes it all the way down to the 7th round and everybody's broke. What happens is you're able to go pull Cam Akers. Because when they throw him up and nominate him for $1, you're the only person in the building that can spend $2 on him. So you throw your $2 down, you have Cam Akers now for $2. You have a potential RB2, maybe RB1 for $2. So, I mean, if you want to play auction draft leagues, I highly recommend it, and I highly recommend that strategy. Patience is key. Don't stress out because you missed on the top 5 running backs, because you can still destroy a league with wide receivers. You can still do that. You can. It's not impossible, but you'll be able to go get your running backs and stuff. I always try to tell people, no matter what though, auction draft, anything, make sure you get one running back. If you miss on all the top 5 running backs, get Josh Jacobs. He's going to get carries. You know that Gruden wants him to be the guy. He's already proved that. He held up decently well. He dealt with a lot of rookie-ish injuries, and that's what happens. When you're a rookie, you have these really nagging, annoying injuries, and it's going to happen to every rookie that comes into the NFL. And, it's very rare that a Zeke comes in and doesn't get hurt. We seen it last year. Saquon and Kamara went down. This happens. This is the NFL. You're getting train wrecks every day. So guys are going to get hurt, and you just got to be able to monitor that and be smart about that. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is after we draft, okay, what is the ultimate goal in fantasy? It's to make it to the playoffs. So how do the playoffs work? Now, we'll get into some technical stuff in a minute. I know this is very, minuscule to an extent as far as knowledge. This is stuff that you can figure out. But the playoffs work by this situation. Every league is going to be broke down into, typically, every league is going to be broke down into 2 divisions. And in those 2 divisions, you're going to have, say it's a 12-team league, you're going to have 6 teams. So the top 3 from each division will go to the playoffs, depending on your settings. And always know your settings. Because some leagues will have it set up where, if you're number 1 in your division, you're an automatic bye. So you walk straight in, you're a bye. You get a bye week on week 1 of the playoffs. And playoffs will always be the last 3 weeks of the season. Now, they've changed this season up for some of these games and stuff, so we'll see how that goes to be able to know what weeks I'm going to have to, we're going to have to know that answer. But this is where you're going to, you need to know that you're going to have those last 3 weeks are going to be the playoffs. And you got to watch your league, because I've been in leagues before where the settings were set, okay, where if, whoever had the most division wins or the best record and most division wins out of those bottom 4 was in. So maybe in one division you might have a really weak division and the number 1 team might get their bye, But everybody else in that division had a terrible record, so the rest of it all comes from the bottom half. You know, you might have 4 teams coming, your 5 teams really come straight out of one side, and then the rest, and only one out of the other because of the fact that that was the number one team. That will happen sometimes. So, guys, you need to keep track of what does my record matter in the playoffs. So, when you're going to pick your teams or you're playing in your leagues, make sure you get an eye of that. Go to your settings menu. Make sure that you know and understand the qualifications to get into the playoffs. You know, and there may be even a week where you say, man, I would rather lose to this guy because I don't want to play this guy in week 1. I'm hoping he gets beat before I got to match up with him. That's what happens. That's what happens. I don't suggest that. I suggest always playing through, but that's me. I just play through. I don't care. I think I'm going to be able to match up with anybody, so I'm going to play through all the way through. But that's a description of the playoffs. That's how most of your playoffs are going to work. It's very rare you have any other difference in playoffs. That's typically how it always goes there. So, what the biggest conversation we're gonna have today, it's gonna be these league types. That's the question. The types of leagues that you're playing in, and those are the things that are really important towards the end of the year, and at the beginning. I mean, obviously, with your draft, but this is important towards the end of the year too to understand where you're at. So first off, we're going to talk about a redraft. And our redraft is very simple. Redraft is going to be your standard leagues, well, not standard, but standard or PPR, and it's going to be what happens is at the end of every year, all your players go back into the pool. And you're going to draft a brand new team next year. And 9 times out of 10, what happens is, it's the next season, the last place team will be the number 1 pick on down in that order. So first place will be last pick, last place will be first pick in the next season, and that's how they'll work that down. But with redraft leagues, you don't keep any players, everything reverts, and you're gonna have your regular draft. Okay, so that's not anything just crazy and outlandish. There are other types of leagues that we're going to talk about. This one is going to be keeper leagues. With a keeper league, this is something that I just really recently got kind of dove into. Some of these I've just recently really dove into. I've played them, and I've got experience in them. It's not that I don't have experience, but I've just recently just just went into some really serious strategy, trying to understand how they work. What kind of tricks are there that I don't know about, or I've tried to research on my own, just watch some trends from leagues I've been in with this. But with the keeper league, what you get with keeper league is every year with keeper leagues you're gonna have, say I have Alvin Kamara and I have A.J. Brown, and those are the 2 guys I want to keep. The next season, I get to keep those 2 guys, okay? But they're going to cost me a draft pick. Alvin Kamara is going to cost me his ADP, same with A.J. Brown. So I lose my first-round pick, and I'll probably lose my 3rd, 4th-round pick, depending on where his ADP falls. In some leagues, knowing the league is what matters. Some leagues, it depends on where I drafted them. So if I drafted A.J. Brown in the 12th round last year, I don't really lose anything. I lose a 12th round pick to keep a top 10 receiver. So pat on the back, But this is why your draft is so important, and you need to follow some type of draft guide and understand when you get to these late rounds. The first rounds, everybody knows. I mean, everybody knows who they're going to get in the first rounds. There's nobody that can't, that's going to tell me they don't, there's not much strategy in the first rounds. There's really not, outside of, your 3 running backs or whatever. But as far as the players in the first 4 rounds, everybody knows who the top guys are. They're going to all fall about the same place. They always fall. But what happens is, like last year, we were heavy on A.J. Brown, and a lot of people weren't, Heavy on Marquise Brown, a lot of people weren't. There's a lot of guys that was heavy on, and a lot of people were not that heavy on these guys. But now here they are, the same people that listened and went and drafted these guys. They got a freaking, they're in keeper leagues with wide receivers that are not even going to call. They're the guys that are going in the fourth round right now are going to cost them a 12th, 13th, 14th round pick. I mean, that's why you take advice. That's why you get advice from people. And that's why you break down some of these players and don't miss because of this. So, keeper league, it's pretty simple. You'll keep X amount of players. They'll cost you by their ADP. And the next style league that's really popular, and this is a league that don't start one of these leagues with a bunch of random people, because it will always turn into a disaster and it will never work out, and you'll always be looking for somebody to take over a team. It's a dynasty league. Do dynasty leagues with people you're very close with, that maybe y'all have already had an experience with 3 or 4 leagues together. Don't do this with, guys on the internet that you don't know and a bunch of random people, because you never know what's going to hit here. I highly suggest people do dynasty with friends from their hometown or friends that they've done this with for a long time. Now, with dynasty will go like this. You'll get to keep your entire team. It will roll over to the next season. So the next season, rather than having a regular draft, you will have you won't have a regular draft. You will keep your team, and then you will have a rookie draft, okay? So in that rookie draft, you're going to get, hang on, give me 1 second. But in that rookie draft, what happens is you're going to keep, you can trade your draft picks. You could trade, if I wanted, if you had Mahomes and were willing to do it, I could trade you Aaron Rodgers and next year's number 1 draft pick. So maybe that's how I rolled, maybe that's how I did it, and I got Mahomes from you. The number one thing with Dynasty is youth. And everything I'm gonna talk to you guys about is youth. The only thing I don't stress youth over is quarterback, because of the fact that if you really look at it, if you want to get a solid quarterback, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, these guys are going to be there and they're still going to put up points, guys. I mean, they'll go home before they go out there and look like garbage. That's the type of people these guys are. They're not just going to come out on the field and look like garbage. I can guarantee you that. I know you can tell by their nature, and these guys have never been that type their entire careers. If they are going to sit out, they're done. But guys, with dynasty leagues, focus heavily on youth, okay? Heavily on youth, and always be a step ahead. With dynasty leagues, you need to be thinking 2 years in the future. Everything needs to be 2 years in the future. You need to think of yourself as, the Colts GM right now. They got Phillip Rivers as their quarterback, and they got T.Y. Hilton, and then they ended up with Jonathan Taylor, which is kind of, I love it. I love the position for Jonathan Taylor. He's one of my top picks this year. But you got an older team, like older quarterback, older wide receiver 1, and they're all in this position together where it's like, what do you do with these guys, We're all kind of lost. We're all kind of wondering, what are they going to do here? And think of yourself as that guy. You don't want to be in that position. You don't want to be in that position where you had to take somebody like that. You want to be able to get that rookie quarterback. You want to be able to get that rookie running back. Really, if you could lock in a quarterback that is good for 10 years, you're solid in a dynasty league. So my suggestion always with dynasty is to always be 2 years ahead of everybody else. Keep a little tracker on, NFL quarterbacks, college quarterbacks. Keep a little tracker on these college guys that are coming up and, say, hey, is this guy worth me, spending a pick on? We don't know. Sometimes you have a Dak Prescott comes out of, the 3rd, 4th round, and all of a sudden he's a top 3 quarterback this year in almost any ranking. He's a top 3, top 4 quarterback across the board, anybody's ranking. And this was a guy that came out of the 3rd, 4th round of, the NFL draft. that's what you don't want to miss on. If you miss on those guys, you're gonna be you're gonna be mad at yourself. You can only hate yourself and slap yourself for that. But what we want to focus on there always going to be youth. With dynasty leagues, it's a totally different world, and I like dynasty leagues. I love dynasty leagues. The thing is, remember, always youth. You're always going to have rookie drafts, but you cannot replace a guaranteed quarterback when you can get one. So if you get a trade offer, make sure to make that happen. Make sure to make that happen. If you can make it happen, make it happen. Now, this is where you're going to have this is another style of league play. We'll go into another type in just a minute, but this is another style of league play. It's best ball. Now, I personally love best ball. I jumped into some best ball tournaments last year. I was blown away. It was something that I thought was not going to be as fun as it was. The way best ball works, and if you haven't played best ball before, I highly suggest you just go jump in a free league on Yahoo or something. Just jump in like a Yahoo Sports free league and try it out. What happens is you get, say, 25 players on your roster. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount of players. Now, what you'll have is your starting lineup will be quarterback, running back, 3 wide receiver, tight end, flex. And you'll have 25 players. The catch is, once you make that draft, that's your team. So if a guy gets hurt, he gets hurt. You can't swap him out. Now, maybe there's other leagues. I do know that some have made IR exceptions. But for the most part, best ball is you get your player, that's your players. You don't get to swap players around. Now, like I said, there's a few that have changed, and you'll have to keep up the rules. But the fun part about this is you don't pick your players each week. You don't pick your lineup each week. In a regular league, you're going to go and plug in, okay, if I got a I want to play this quarterback because he's got this matchup, this running back, vice versa. With this, what happens is they total all the points up on Sunday night after Monday night. After Monday Night Football, they'll total all the numbers up. Your 3 highest scoring wide receivers will get plugged into your lineup. Your 2 highest scoring running backs plugged into your lineup all the way down. And then that's how they'll score you. So it's one of those deals where, man, you really got to back up your players. You got to back up some guys with some guys that you're not 100% on if you go early. I tend to like to go early because I know where I'm going with things at this point in the year. I've been knowing, I've probably been knowing since, I don't know, probably since April, May. Once the NFL draft is done and over, I pretty much know where I want to go with my players. I already kind of been watching guys in college some. I keep up with guys in college, and I keep up with all the draft, and I keep up with all the free agency moves. So I've always got my focus on the NFL in some form or fashion for this kind of stuff, okay? So with a keeper league, you're going to want to back up your guys. If you got a running back that's got a history of injury, back him up. Back him up with somebody good. Back him up with somebody solid. Especially, this is like yesterday. We were talking about second-year guys. We were talking about second-year guys the other day, and yesterday we were talking about sleepers and handcuffs. Second-year guys blow up. Sleepers and handcuffs blow up. Whenever all these things happen, like I said about Kamara and Latavius Murray, when you have Kamara on a best ball league, get Latavius Murray because Latavius Murray is going to put up his points. He's going to put up points when anything happens to Kamara. And then you just load up with guys that are, the Darius Slaytons of the world that a lot of people that don't know. And that's who you want to get. You want to get young players. You want to get guys that have not had injury histories because you're not able to move rosters around. So a lot of times that's the best way to play best ball. But yeah, best ball it's so much fun. If you haven't ever played it, you really need to get into it. You would love it if you ever played it before. And a new league this year. Okay, this is the one I was talking about before. And I don't know how many of you guys have experience with this. I'm going to actually read this off to you guys because this is something new for me. I just really started looking into it. A vampire league. Now, how good is this? I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. It may be too much, but it's interesting. So I kind of want to look into it. Sounds pretty cool to me. Basically, what happens here? Okay, you'll have, say, 10 teams, okay? 9 of the 10 are going to draft their regular roster. This is how they're going to do. One team is not going to draft at all. Now, what happens at the end of the draft, the one guy that did not draft, okay, he's going to get the pick from whoever's left on waivers. So he's probably going to have some wide receivers, probably going to have some quarterbacks, tight end play. That's pretty much what he's going to have to focus on for a little while. What he's going to have the disadvantage is running backs. But your team, once you draft, the other 9 teams cannot drop anybody unless they go on IR. That's the only time they can make a move. You can't make any waiver wire moves unless you go on IR. He can make waiver wire moves. You cannot. Whoever's, the 10th man, the one that got sat out, that's the one that can make waiver moves. And also, the other catch behind this is if that player beats you in a head-to-head matchup, he can pick one of any of your players he wants to swap with his teammates, to swap one with his starters from the week. That's kind of interesting, I don't know how good it's going to be. I don't know if I want to mess with it, but I think it sounds pretty cool. I would try it out, I don't know what platform you're going to use. I really don't. What do you use for a platform? I don't know if maybe you take a Yahoo platform, make the 10th team pick a bunch of guys that aren't in the league anymore. I don't know. I really don't know how you would do that. Maybe that's how you could do it. That would be one route. But yeah, guys, that's some kind of league that I've never heard of before. I don't know. Let me look and see if it's got any kind of I didn't see if it had any kind of. Let's see. Okay, so the worst team at the end of the season is your vampire team. So if you lose, you're the vampire team for the next year. I wonder, man. I wonder how interesting that would be. I really do. I think I may get a few of my buddies together and try it out. Give everybody a heads up on it for maybe for next year. I think it would be kind of cool. I think it's different. I don't know. I really like it. It sounds pretty freaking cool to me. You get to pick a player off the other team. Dude, if you just win, one game, you're back in the conversation. You're back up there in the top. So I think that's a pretty cool idea to me. That's just me. All right. So let's get going to the rest of this. What I wanted to tell you guys about this, and this is another deal that you guys need to know about is DFS. DFS is your daily fantasy sports. That's where your DraftKings, FanDuel, all that kind of stuff, that's all going to be DFS. Basically what you can do each week, some DFS versions will allow you to draft a team for the players that have a game that day. They may let you draft for the entire weekend. It may be a Sunday kickoff deal. There's a million things they do with DFS, and some of it's drafting. Some of it's going to be the salary cap. Majority is salary cap, and then some is drafting. I'll put it like that. There were some websites I've used before. I don't know if they're going to be open up this year or not. I can keep an eye out, let you guys know. If I see anything, I'll let you guys know. And I'll talk with the people that used to run them and see if they're still around, Sometimes it's just the playing field gets changed. I don't know if it's that they have new ownership or maybe somebody tries something and they just try it in a different name. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the underworkings of online leagues. That's not something I can give you opinions on. I can give you opinions on how to win leagues. I can't give you opinions on all that. But with DFS, that's what you're typically getting from your FanDuel, DraftKings, all that. I don't really like DFS. I really don't. I can do it and I'm great at it. That's not a problem. I just I get a joy out of the same playing the same people every week because the fact I could jump into DFS and I could probably win some money each week, and I will I will do that. That's not it's not saying I'm not gonna play DFS, but I kind of like that that not camaraderie, but the competition. The competition of playing your league mates, and then you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna beat you next week." I mean, it's a lot more fun to me to know the people I'm playing against than to play against 15,000 people in one day. It's just to me, it's more fun. But DFS can be fun. It can be entertaining. Um, I'll have some DFS videos each week for you guys, everybody that follows me. We're gonna have all that kind of stuff here. But I want you guys to know, anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's daily fantasy sports. This is what you're gonna see. A lot of these things, like I was talking about at the beginning, with different kind of lawmakers working on things with DFS. That's where this is coming from. Some states it's legal, some states it's not legal. Some you can't put money in, some you can play but you can't do money. Um, you know, I like DFS. I would play. I highly suggest you try it. I suggest you try any of these leagues that you haven't tried before, even if it's just a free one, and just try it out. Because guys, you never know, and especially if you've never played fantasy before. If you've never played fantasy football before, it's really good to try and go do a mock draft. Send it to somebody like me or somebody else that can say, hey, that's cool, but here's this would have been a better route for you, and break it down for you. But this video is going to teach you guys how to play, and I'm just going to teach you guys the basics. That's all I've been trying to do. So, lastly, well, not lastly, we'll discuss. I'll throw some extra stuff in, probably. We'll see. One thing that's always very important is going to be your waiver wire. And your waiver wire, for anybody that doesn't know, your waiver wire is going to be where you pick up players that are not on other teams. And in the average league, Tuesday night is the waiver wire deadline for the week. So you want to put in your guys that you're wanting to swap for before midnight on Tuesday nights, okay? Because once midnight hits on Tuesday nights, I believe it's actually midnight Pacific time is the majority of leagues. It's midnight Pacific time. When that hits, whoever's loaded up, they're going to get those players, and you're going to miss out. So if somebody gets, or say Dalvin Cook got hurt, and nobody had Alexander Mattison, and you're a Dalvin Cook owner, or really, to be honest with you, the strategy is to take him from the Dalvin Cook owner. So, that's a trick too. There's a ton of tricks with waiver wire. I will discuss some with you guys. We'll do a waiver wire video soon, and I'll discuss that. But with waiver wires, this is, you'll drop a player from your team and pick up a player out of that pool. There's a few things that I want to warn you guys about, okay? If you're playing in a fantasy league. Number one, dude, double check before you hit select. I don't care what time I don't care what it is that you're doing. When you're messing with waivers, make sure that you don't have two players. Make sure you're not dropping, Zeke for Marquise Brown. Don't drop the stud for, the wide receiver 3 or the running back 3. Don't do that. But make sure, just double check what you're doing before you hit select. Once you hit select, if it's already past Tuesday, that's it. That's game over, okay? And like I said earlier, you've got to know what day your waivers clear. Always make sure you know when your waivers are going to clear, okay? And another thing is, okay, this is very important. If you're in a league and you have, okay, they say your waiver wire picks that you're allowed to do 4 waiver wire moves a week. Save one. Do not use one, because you never know what's going to happen. You may have the Monday night quarterback, and Sunday afternoon, right after the last game, the Sunday night game starts, he walks out of his apartment and breaks his thumb. Falls down the steps and cracks his thumb, or sprains his knee, and he can't play the next night, and then you're out of quarterback. So you're automatic loss for the week. So make sure that you have one roster spot for waiver wires you can make. And sometimes this actually plays out in your favor because you have that one spot and something happens and you can grab a guy like grab a backup for somebody else and then turn around and trade that backup to that guy, okay? If you can turn around and trade that backup and make some profit off of it, it's even better. So make sure you have a roster spot, and you make sure to make sure to keep an eye out for your other teammates. Maybe one of those guys didn't double check, Maybe they didn't double check before they hit select. And if they did, and you're going to go get their guy, you're going to be in, you might walk out of that whole deal with a Zeke Elliott. A lot of times guys are going to catch it, because there's typically a waiver clearing period, and so guys are going to catch it. That's the last thing with waivers. Know that waiver clearing period. So if your league is set up and they say, okay, it's a 48-hour, time frame from the time a guy gets cut, know that you have 48 hours because, if it's an automatic league, which there are a lot of people don't have a 48-hour waiting period. A lot of people, once you cut a guy, he's cut. So make sure you know that rule, because it would suck to not know that rule, make a mistake, and just not think about it till the next morning. You wake up and somebody's already grabbed Zeke. You're in trouble. You can't get him back. Technically it's gonna be a whirlwind to get him back. And even though you may not admit it, it's still gonna look really bad. If it's not gonna be more than likely when you do this, you're not going to drop Zeke. You're going to drop somebody that's kind of 50-50, and everybody's going to think that you're lying. And it's going to, even if you're telling the truth, they're going to think that you're playing games, and it's a mess. So know how many days it takes to clear, and every time you go to hit select, make sure you double check. Because if you don't, I'm telling you, it happens every year, and I've done it. Everybody does it. Everybody makes this mistake. Somebody, something happens, somebody gets hurt, they gets their feelings hurt, and then they drop a guy didn't mean to, whatever. So just watch for that, guys. All right, and one other topic we'll talk about whenever it comes to fantasy football is your trades. Anybody can make trades. There's going to be, more than likely in a league, you're going to have a clearing period for your trades too. So if I trade you Zeke for Kamara, I just keep using these players just because there's no, special thing there. I just use these guys. I trade you Zeke for Kamara. There's going to be a waiver. There's going to be kind of a waiver clearing, just like the other with trades. So you got to know, okay, did I trade Zeke before? Do I offer the Zeke trade before before he would clear to be able to play this week, or should I offer it after? You might want to take that. Extra day, keep your guy, and then make the trade the next day, where you're not losing a player. So there's strategy in that, where it gets you an extra win that week. Maybe this guy's actually sending this trade because he's, he knows he can get very equal value out of both. So he's going to offer you Kamara on Kamara's bye week, and then you're going to be stuck with, bye week Kamara after you had bye week Zeke, and then there you are, you had two weeks of bye weeks from your number one running backs. And so there's always strategy people are working out in their heads. So don't just, don't get too excited and just jump on everything. Always take a step back. Always think. But that's how fantasy football works, guys. It's very simple. The other thing, one last thing I would throw in, when you're drafting, guys, always do this. When I'm on the board and I'm going to go, it's my turn to pick, I'm not going to just instantly click who I want. Just pump the brakes for a minute. Look at the players available. If you've got 2 minutes on the clock, make it a habit of using one. Use a minute. Just sit there. Don't even do anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to press any buttons. You don't have to be looking at everybody else. Just sit there for a minute, try it with mock drafts, and then clear your head before you make that pick. Because I've seen so many times where I've had leagues where I leave the draft and I look back at the draft and I say, man, why? Why did I do that? I could have got this quarterback later on. So I'll throw this in there too. This is a little trick for you guys. That this is a trick I use. Anybody that does this all the time uses, and this is going to play into what I was just saying. Is that when you're drafting guys, you need to get yourself in a habit. This is why mock drafts are so freaking important, guys. Mock draft, mock draft, mock draft. Get yourself in the habit of whatever deal. If you use ESPN and you use Yahoo, whatever, doesn't matter. Get yourself in a rhythm whenever it's coming up to you or it comes up to your turn. Know who is behind you and what picks are in between you. So why I say that is we're in round 6. Let's say for for knowledge's sake, we're in round 6, and I know that there's 2 quarterbacks left I want, and in between my pick, there's going to be 8 more picks. Okay. I open my dashboard and I look down and drop down every team's list. Okay, make sure I count up who needs a quarterback, and if nobody needs a quarterback, I'm not touching quarterbacks. Now, if 2 of those teams need quarterback, I'm probably going to have to get them. And this is why I say it in a lot of my videos, is chess, not checkers. Because why you're going to play chess with these people, the reason you're going to play chess, that right there, you're going to beat guys by thinking 2 steps ahead of everybody in your league. That's what you should be doing. So when you're talking trades and you're talking all this, you're talking drafts, you should be thinking of your timers. You should be thinking of using time. Don't just jump to the first thing. There's always a reason. Somebody may have offered you a trade and it looks amazing. You get to the trade and then you say, man, you hurry up and hit that button. And 30 seconds after you hit it, oh, here comes the notification on your phone why they traded you. They traded you because that dude's hurt. He just fell down the steps at his house. He broke his leg. He's done for the season. I mean, dude, that's the things, guys, that I want you guys to understand, that you've got to take your time with fantasy football. If you want to play fantasy football to the fullest, it's not a time-consuming thing as much as it is. You've got to learn to slow down, use every bit of thought process you have, and think through picks faster than the next guy. You got to be able to look at people's roster and say, do they need a running back? Do they need a quarterback? Maybe, the easiest thing to pick is the quarterbacks. You can pick that out real quick, because if a team's got a quarterback, unless it's me, because I'm bad, I am the one guy that I will go back to back on them. I will grab 2 quarterbacks if the right ones are available. But most guys, if they've got a quarterback in the 6th, 7th round, they're not touching quarterbacks again. They're going to go straight running back, straight wide receiver, depending on what they need. So if you see, running back is a position of need over quarterback, grab your running back. When it comes back to you after those 8 picks, then you'll get your quarterback. So you'll take your time with that. So you don't get, no need in getting in a big rush, guys. I mean, this is, it is what it is. I take my time in everything I do with fantasy football, because here's the deal. 30 seconds of thought process could ruin your entire season. Your entire season could be wiped out for 30 seconds of thought process that you didn't take the time to think out. So don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that's, running around talking trash to everybody. Just go in and, go in with a mindset that you're determined to draft right. You're determined to beat everybody. But, have a good time with it. Man, fantasy is a sport that's supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy this, you shouldn't be fighting over this, man. Fantasy is not a thing that should be taken so to heart that you have these, rivalries in your own kind. You and your buddies, like, if me and my brother, we got sibling rivalry over here because we're mad because I beat him or he beat me, and Let's not do that, guys. Let's not go there. Let's just play and have fun, guys. And this is what you're gonna have a lot of fun when you're winning leagues for this year. I can tell you that. You'll be able to win leagues from this year. And so, guys, I just wanted to jump in here, teach you guys a little something about fantasy football, but at the same time, I want to introduce fantasy football to a bigger realm of fans. And I think we have to start that out by extending that olive branch and telling people, look, if you're interested in, or if you think that fantasy football is stupid, why don't you come over here and look at this video? Let's talk about what you do, what fantasy football is, and how to play it. And why don't you give it a try and see how it is? Some people that were totally against it, all of a sudden now they love it. Like, they're playing every year, and some of them are terrible. They're horrible. I've seen guys that, I'm from Louisiana. I've had teams that pick nothing but Saints players. Literally, every Saints player. So, guys, I mean, just have fun with it, y'all. And we'll get out here and beat some teams, but for the most part, guys, we're going to have some fun. So if you see anybody that doesn't know how to play fantasy football, I mean, this is about the best breakdown I could give to you. And if you have any questions about it, you have any ideas, hey, if you want to jump in a Vampire League, let's go do it. So, yeah, guys, thank you for watching. And like I said, y'all go have fun. We'll do some more fun stuff this week. Thanks, guys.